So number one would have to be
Batman Forever.
Going for a joke.
Yes.
God, did we
ran out of
joke
movies.
here,
We
John?
ran out of movies.
What is up there, Reject Nation? The time has come to do a ranking of the Batman theatrically released movies with a couple of extended ones in there that were not put in the cinemas. I think the easiest way to put it in perspective is 66 to 2022 are the films. So if you guys can leave a like, that would be very much appreciated. We got like, I think 15 movies, I believe, to run the gambit through. Let's kick this off. First one on the list, going from bottom to top. There's only a couple here I don't really like. Batman and Robin. While I know this has turned into like a cult hit, some consider it like a great spoof or something like that. And honestly, every time I turn this movie on, the first 10 to 20 minutes, I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun. While I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is a legend in this film, I will sometimes pull up compilations of what he says in this movie. It's classic.
I hate when people talk during the movie.
I can never finish it. I just can't even sit through the film. It quickly devolves into just loud, annoying, and whatever bemusement was to be had quickly just dies for me. And so, yeah, that's very, very bottom for me. Johnny?
Awesome. Very, very bottom for me is Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the theatrical cut.
Emphasize the theatrical.
The theatrical cut.
Don't worry, the extended version will be on this list.
Elsewhere on the list. But yeah, this movie wrecked my day when I saw it. I came out of the theater and I was bummed out. I was like, this is an expensive tentpole movie featuring two of the most iconic characters. There's no excuse for it to be as unintelligible and as unenjoyable as it turned out for me. So yeah, this is probably the one and only Batman movie I truly dislike.
All right, so number 14 for moi would have to be Batman Forever. The reason why I put this above Batman and Robin is, A, when I was young, I actually liked the movie. When I was young, I was like, you know what, as a kid, I thought it was good. And then when I got older, especially the last few times I've seen it in recent years, I can confidently say I do not like this film. A lot of what I said about Batman and Robin would definitely be applied to here, but I guess I give it the edge over because there's actual cheese spread throughout the film that I enjoy. I actually like Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne in the movie, to be totally honest. It's kind of uncomfortably sexy, I think, with Nicole Kidman. Yep. I like Chris O'Donnell, but to be totally honest with you guys, I don't like Jim Carrey's performance in this movie, and I don't like Tommy Lee Jones in here either. I think they're both very, very annoying, and the last half of the film just sort of de-escalates into being very boring. So, yeah, not a big fan of this one.
Awesome. Well, my next one on the list is one of everyone's favorite Batman movies, and that's the Justice League, the theatrical cut of Justice League. What hasn't been said about this movie already? It's a weird, garish Saturday morning cartoon. I don't actively dislike it, but I don't really have any reason to watch it again, and there's obviously a much better version out there that I would watch 1,000 times again before rewatching this. It doesn't upset me to the degree that like the BVS theatrical cut did, but I have no reason to ever watch it again.
Okay, so number 13 for moi would have to be Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the theatrical cut. I really didn't like this movie the first time I saw it. I thought it was okay on rewatch. Still didn't really like it too much. Yeah, extended version will be on this list, don't worry. While even in the theatrical version, I think Ben Affleck is great in the movie. I've always loved that warehouse fight scene. Music choices I thought were good, and I think the opening has always been fantastic, despite some weird things about that dude being in the building. Jack!
Can't evacuate without direct orders.
Yeah, I ultimately find the experience like really hollow and not in a complimentary way by any means. I felt very empty with most of the film.
All right, so number 13 for me would have to be Batman Forever. This is a movie that teeters back and forth constantly for me between scenes that I actually think are kind of neat. I agree. I like Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne at least. And yeah, there are some moments of actually funny humor, but for the most part, this is the most annoying and incessant Batman movie for me. These movies, a big part of it is the villains and those iconic turns. What are people going to do with the role? And as much as I like to see Tommy Lee Jones really stretch his legs and play a very out their comedic role, he and Jim Carrey just create this dissonant, loud, annoying presence on screen that only multiplies when they get together. I didn't grow up with this movie. I saw this movie later than most of the 90s Batman movies. I don't really have a strong childhood connection to Jim Carrey, so for me, I'm just watching Jim Carrey do a Jim Carrey, and it doesn't ever coalesce into the movie for me, so yeah, not as fun as it could be, though I like the Flying Grace and stuff, and I like Val Kilmer, so.
Well, you missed out on some good toys at the fast food place where toys were born. I think it was Burger King. Anyway,
I remember all the commercials.
so number 12 for me would have to be Justice League. Now, I'll be honest, when I first watched this, I thought it was a lot of fun. And I still think there's definitely fun to be had with this film. I even like the Batman introduction here with the Gotham City. It looked cool to me. A little ridiculous, but I was able to see past a lot of the flaws when I first saw it. Now, when I try to watch it, it's just almost impossible. Because I know too much of what happened with this film, and then you've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, and you're like, wow, that's a genuinely great film. That'll be on this list. And then I look at this one, and it's just so horrible now. It's so weird to just go from, you know what, I actually kind of defend this movie, to, oh no, this is kind of rough.
So yeah, the next one on my list, surprise, surprise, is Batman and Robin. I did grow up with this movie, so maybe there's some rose-colored glasses from that. Compared to Batman Forever, this movie's just a more consistent watch for me. I actually do enjoy Uma Thurman and Arnold Schwarzenegger as the villains. And hey, I mean, George Clooney may not be the best Batman, but I get where they were going, and I like some of his shades of the character. And if we're hearkening back to that 66 flavor, this one was much less annoying to me than the previous film. And also, too, for as garish and campy as the movie is, like, some of the Bane stuff is actually kind of unsettling and disturbing to me. So because of that, it takes on a bit more of that gothic quality, and there is some camp that I do enjoy about this movie. So yeah, not like miles above Batman Forever, but I would certainly probably put this on sooner.
All right, so that would be the category of the Batman movies we don't like. Now let's move on to the Batman movies we do like. So for number 11, I think we have the same one here,
I believe
which
so.
would be the 66 version of Batman. This movie is genuinely a lot of fun. The amount of different gadgets and bat transportation devices. Oh, wow.
That shark repellent, baby.
I think it does a really good job at what it sets out to be.
And it lays the groundwork for what the Schumacher movies would try to do, but if you're going to have a bunch of villains who are all sort of at 11, at least you can kind of tell them apart, and it does feel authentically like a comic strip of the time, which is the most appropriate for the time it was made in. So it's not at odds with itself for me, and it is, yeah, quite fun and enjoyable. Love Adam West and Burt Ward together.
It shouldn't work, but it works.
But it works.
Another one that we happen to be aligned with, but I feel like for different reasons. John and I know each other's list, but we don't know the specifics. Batman 1989. So for me, Michael Keaton he's good. I'm excited for Michael Keaton to return for The Flash, but I'm more excited about that because of the roles I love Michael Keaton for outside of Batman 89. I love the style of this movie. I love the aesthetic. I love the music. This feels like I've stepped into a Frank Miller graphic novel. And Jack Nicholson, he is fun. I feel like over the years with getting like Jokers that don't feel like the actor is playing himself have kind of put down the repetitive viewing experience of Jack Nicholson for some people, not everyone, a little bit for me. I don't really get that invested in the plot or the characters. It kind of falls a little flat for me in terms of the enjoyment, but I still also like looking at it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
There are some selective scenes that I do truly really enjoy that do generate some emotion, but for the overall experience, I'm more observant with the movie.
That's
than I am invested.
exactly the word I was going to go with, is I don't get really pulled in or swept up. I observe it, and at times I'm like, wow, I'm super appreciating this, or yeah, that's a beautiful image. And overall, there's just later work that will fill that gap for me.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So number 9 for me would have to be The Dark Knight Rises.
I'm sorry, can we remix the audio on that?
Yeah. Now, when this movie first came out, I was a major defender of this. In fact, one of the first videos we ever did was Haters Why We Love The Dark Knight Rises. In repeat viewings over the years, the film has just gone down for me quite a lot. I think Bane is such an underrated performance, weirdly iconic as much as we meme this shit, I still feel like he doesn't get enough credit for being such a great villain. I love a lot of the visuals. Like if you have a Blu-ray player with the right TV, you pop in that Blu-ray to watch those IMAX shots, they are still beautiful. The music is awesome. There's elements of like the tone and atmosphere that I still really enjoy, and I like Anne Hathaway a lot. But there's just so many writing choices, especially in its second half, once we reach like ground zero territory with the film. It just bug me more and more and more, and it just get worse the more I think about it. And every time I watch it, and you guys probably already know what the hell those are. story. You've heard them point it out for so many years. And maybe as a movie solely on its own, it's better. But as a viewer, I can't help but view it as the third installment in two much better films.
Fair enough. My number 9, remember, we're in the part of the list where we like all this stuff. My number 9 is Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition. Massive improvement. It took a film that I hated and made it a film I like. I really enjoy a lot of the characterizations. Even Lex Luthor, I'm in the minority, who especially in the extended edition kind of sees where he's coming from. And ultimately, it's just I'm not as attached to this iteration of these characters, and I think there are Zack Snyder films I like better and Batman films I like better. So, you know, it's definitely a marked improvement. I definitely have good feelings towards it. There's just a lot of other movies I would watch sooner than that.
You're a Snyder hater, huh? That's what we have here.
That's right, man. Close the Snyderverse.
All right, now for my list, we have entered the categories of Batman movies I love. I'm going to keep this one short, but I really love this one a lot. The Lego Batman movie. It is hilarious. Like, it's a great damn comedy. The voiceover work is excellent. The animation is astounding. And it weirdly, in some ways, feels like one of the purest Batman movies. Despite how many jabs it takes at itself, it really knows the Batman world, from the comics, from the shows to the movies. It feels like it sets out to honor them while also poking fun at itself, and it has so much heart and there's cool action. I genuinely think this is a fantastic film, and I really hope that one day we can get the Lego Batman movie part 2, because Will Arnett is excellent.
He's Batman. And this movie is also my number 8. So yeah, everything you just said pretty much is a loving parody that also speaks to how much they know the mythology and all the different iterations of that. It borders on being maybe a little hyper-kinetic for my taste, but that's about the only complaint I have about it. It's so much fun, and yeah, I would love to see a sequel.
So I think our number 7s are the same here, which would be Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, if we were just doing a DCEU film ranking list, this would actually be higher, but because this is a Batman list, that's how I'm sort of putting the optics around it. That's why it falls at number 7. I think this is a wonderful film. I love it. I've seen it 3 times now. I'm never bored 1 second during this experience. I think it's beautiful. And yeah, hashtag restore the Snyderverse. We got a multiverse going on. Let's do it, guys. But the reason why it falls at number 7 is because this is like obviously more of a Justice League movie, an ensemble piece, and there's all these other much bigger pieces to the whole thing. I also feel like my biggest takeaways with this movie are not really about Batman. While I think Ben Affleck is excellent as always, the way he carries over from BVS to this one is solid. However, I mainly think about like Cyborg and Flash, like other elements of the film, and I'm like, oh yeah, but he's still good. But he's not one of the top things I actually think about when thinking about this movie.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, for my taste, I don't have a tremendous attachment to Ben Affleck's Batman, Bruce Wayne, but this was my favorite performance of his and the most pathos I thought he brought to it, and the most I got connected to him. And I really do like the journey of showing how and why the Justice League needs Bruce, what function he serves for them and all that. Like, I thought that was nicely laid out here. So yeah, like really quality, but ultimately, yeah, you come out with a lot of other things to think about.
Yeah, he's a good job at playing a lead, but ultimately knowing the lead position is to support the other characters.
100%.
So my number 6 would have to be Batman Returns. So this one did everything Batman 89 did, but so much better in my opinion. I think the primary leg up that this film has is that they really let Tim Burton do so much more of what Tim Burton is great at doing. Having that level of much less restraints is really palpable with this movie. I think Michelle Pfeiffer is excellent. I also really buy the chemistry between her and Michael Keaton. Chris Walken is a great addition. Danny DeVito is excellent in here. This movie is funny, sometimes scary, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes sexy, beautiful. It's gothic. In fact, it should be higher on my list. I think it's a great film. I genuinely think this is a great movie. Every time I rewatch it, the older I get, the more I like it for some reason. Yeah, Batman Returns. Excellent film.
So yeah, my number 6 would have to be The Dark Knight Rises. I agree with a lot of what you said. Obviously, I like it more than you. There is some stuff that still sticks in my mind that is still iconic, that I still really love, and I still think really nicely incorporates the history of the world Nolan built. Obviously, Bane is iconic. But yeah, as his movies go, it's much blockier. There are like a million plot threads that feel way more chaotic somehow than The Dark Knight does. So yeah, it's the most flawed of the Nolan trilogy, but I still think it turned out pretty solid overall, and I do like how it rounds out the trilogy, even though I admit it could be better and more graceful, etc.
So my number 5 would actually be Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition. Not just because it is an improvement over the theatrical cut. Like, does that aid? I'm sure it does in some subconscious way. I genuinely love this version. I love the build that it does, and pretty much most of the flaws, including the Martha moment, just makes sense in this version. I love the piece that this is, and in terms of Batman, I think the reason why I put this as number 5 is because this dude is easily the most formidable. Like, in my opinion, he could kick all the other Batman's asses, all right? I think he's so badass. That warehouse fight is easily my favorite Batman fight on live action that's been done to date. The big thing that makes it higher on the list is especially because of who Ben Affleck is as Batman here. I love the combination of both his Bruce Wayne and his Batman, because Bruce Wayne is definitely like cocky, has attitude like I don't give a shit, but still feels like really haunting, broody, and dark. You could see how people wouldn't suspect him to be Batman, but you could also see how this guy could also be Batman if someone were to tell you that. While he is more willing to like kill if necessary, in this world that is established, it works for me. I know for some people it's a big no-no. For me, I actually don't mind it. Elements of it feel like an alt universe, almost Thomas Wayne-esque from Flashpoint for me. And yeah, he's just like the most badass version in my personal opinion.
So going into the top 5, I deliberated on where to put this one in particular, and it's partly landing at number 5 because it's the one I've seen the least recently, but Batman Mask of the Phantasm is such a wonderfully orchestrated movie. And talking about like Lego Batman, a movie that's geared toward families more broadly, I love that this is coming out of the animated series, which is already renowned for its sophistication and its darker themes. It builds perfectly on top of that. It has all these rich gothic and noir, but also very comic book aesthetics, and you gotta give it props for introducing a really iconic villain for the movie itself and really playing off of those film noir and femme fatale themes, and also utilizing the rogues gallery in a really wonderful, and in some cases, some people would argue definitive way. Depending on the day, this might land even higher on my list because I just love the world of the animation, the look of it, and how it really washes over you, and I would kill to see this on a big screen.
All right, so yeah, my number 4 on the list is actually Batman Mask of the Phantasm. 1000% everything that you said. The thing that I would add on to it is that in terms of all these movies, in some ways, this might actually be the most quintessential, most apt depiction of Bruce Wayne Batman for a feature film. I think it is pitch perfect in that regard. I love the flashback elements and how they use that to better serve the present day storytelling, seeing how he became Batman, his relationship with Andrea, obviously the connection with the villain Phantasm, and the conflicting choices that are presented truly feel conflicting. I love the mood that this one strikes. Everything about the gothic elements that you were talking about. The musical score here is also wonderful from the very opening, and it's honestly pretty scary. You know, as a kid, there was like some kind of terrifying moments. There's certain deaths that feel very haunting. Mark Hamill as the Joker, I think, is so enjoyable, and I'm so surprised we have heard nothing about doing a live action Phantasm movie yet.
It'll happen someday. All right, so my number 4, Batman Returns. I won't say too much because I pretty much agree with everything you said. But yeah, this was one I saw later on in life and have enjoyed every time and since increasingly. And I love just the general theme of unity among freaks that this movie explores. And yeah, it feels like it delivers on what I was hoping the '89 film would. It feels way more authored by Tim Burton. I get sucked into it. Nothing is left without some kind of character and some kind of detail, mixing, you know, those gothic comic book aesthetics with the more sort of strange silent movie stuff that Tim Burton likes. I absolutely adore Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Danny DeVito's Penguin just reminded me how great of an actor he can be, especially in character roles. I love the addition of Chris Walken as Max Schreck. I love this movie more every time I watch it.
All right, so number 3 for me would have to be Batman Begins. This is a great movie.
Yes, it is.
All right, it's a great movie. It is so much fun. It's exciting. To me, it's like just a great blockbuster film because it's character driven, but it escalatingly gets more entertaining and more rousing, you know? Like that introduction of the Batmobile when he's first time Batman. And I think also while I would give the leg up to Mask of Phantasm in terms of like the perfect split and duality of Batman and Bruce Wayne, this to me is the best origin tale Bale told of Batman. And it also captures this great nuanced relationship with Alfred, the relationship he forms with Lucius Fox. I might get crap here. I actually prefer Katie Holmes over Maggie Gyllenhaal in the role of Rachel.
Fair enough.
And I think Christian Bale's voice is actually really cool in here.
Do I look like a clown?
I do think there's a lack of Scarecrow here. Well, I always crave for more Cillian Murphy in that film whenever I watch it. Liam Neeson is good, but Ra's al Ghul in this film is not my personal favorite thing. But in terms of your origin tale of Batman and the world created and the Hans Zimmer score and all those goodies, this film is excellent. And I also think that Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne is probably my favorite. I personally prefer the 1-2 combo of Bruce Wayne Batman with Ben Affleck, but in terms of just isolating Bruce Wayne, Christian Bale is my favorite.
I couldn't agree more. Number 3 is also Batman Begins for me, and I think of all the Nolan movies, this is the one that most evenly bridges the gap between graphic novel and gritty cinema feel, and it really creates an and it really creates an anticipation for what's to come. It feels like the most graphic novel that his movies get. Gotham feels the most Gotham-y out of all of his movies. It's not too big, it's not too small, it's very noir, and yeah, you can never have too much Cillian Murphy.
All right, so, if you reveal number 2, you automatically know what number 1 is. The reason why John and I know each other's lists because I felt like we had to know what this were before having to edit this damn video. We're just going to say number 2 and number 1 at the same time, because once you say number 2, you know what number 1 is. So number 2, after watching this 3 times on 3 different types of theaters and screens, I could confidently say my number 2 is The Batman, as would you.
Likewise.
And so number 1 would have to be
Batman Forever.
Going for a joke.
Yes.
God, did we
ran out of
joke
movies.
here,
We
John?
ran out of movies. Batman beat to the Dark Knight.
Look, we've talked extensively about both of these films. The main reason why I would give a leg up on The Dark Knight, rewatchability, also the heart that movie has, and it is just generally more exciting of a film. So there's definitely qualities of the Batman that I way prefer over The Dark Knight, especially its detective elements. I prefer that version of Batman. The easiest way I could put it is what I've heard a lot of people say, and I couldn't agree more with this sentiment. I think The Batman is a damn near perfect Batman movie and is a better Batman movie than The Dark Knight is. But I think The Dark Knight is overall a better film, just like by a tiny bit for me, and more enjoyable purposefully.
Yeah, well, it's still a blockbuster while having all of that grit and heft and realism that they're trying to inject. But especially when you watch the Batman, you're like, oh, the Christopher Nolan movies are more graphic novel-y than I gave them credit for. And yeah, the Batman to me speaks to certain elements of just cinema tradition and certain character themes that appeal very directly to me outside of the comic book sphere. But yeah, when you look at it, it's like I'll never forget the experiences. I won't forget the experiences with the Batman either, but with the Dark Knight, it was such a moment. Everyone was there. We camped out for hours. We saw it like 16 times in the theaters, and it's held up across all of that. It's an iconic movie, and it's hard to top. And yeah, it's like, if you're just a cinephile, I would say maybe the Batman's your movie, but for the overall scope and spectrum and comprehensive
everything you have to factor in.
Yeah, for everything across the history of the character on screen, I feel like, yeah, The Dark Knight nails that stuff, and it is iconic and definitive and all that.
And granted, you obviously think so much more about Joker than you would Batman in that film, and that's actually why I would say the first 15 to 20 minutes of the Batman is the best 15 to 20 minutes of any Batman movie, and I would give that over The Dark Knight, because while I think that is a solid opening scene prologue for The Dark Knight, that's a Joker scene. The first 15 to 20 minutes of the Batman, that is pure Batman.
Well, the Batman is, I think, the one Batman movie where among the first topics of discussion is Batman, Bruce Wayne, Robert Pattinson, etc. Whereas the other movies, it's usually a villain first, and Batman is notable, but yeah, like he is the most like focal. Everyone's like, gotta talk about him.
And I still like his journey. And the thing is, that's really hard to top for me is the scene with Joker and Batman in the interrogation room in The Dark Knight. That's just so hard to top because it's so iconic, and it's just hits all the feels. Like, I watched The Dark Knight 12 times in totals in the theaters. I'm gonna watch the Batman a 4th time, but I think I'm good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, which near 3-hour experience flies by quicker?
Yeah. Like, I think after that, even on the 3rd, I'm like, yeah, I think I
can put this down for a minute. Yeah, for sure. And plus, I mean, Dark Knight has way more just legitimate IMAX moments too, which are insanely breathtaking to behold.
All right, guys. Well, that's our list for the Batman movies. What would your ranking be? Obviously, you got to let us know down below. Put quite a lot of thought into the structure of this one. So thanks for sticking around with us. And yeah, this is objective. None of it is subjective. We'll talk to you guys soon.